Hello guys, Joker the Fool here, back at it again with the 86th episode of the Braxcast. Of course, I did a live stream last night on Halloween to celebrate the closeout of Bloodruth number 2, and since it was Halloween, there wasn't an official Rippaverse stream, so that kind of was it, even though I ramble and I talk about so many things during live streams, but it was still good fun, so thanks to everyone who showed up for that live stream, and of course all the people who show up for all my live streams. Absolutely love having fun with you guys. But since we are on the topic of Bloodruth number 2, it is of course Halloween weekend, so it's still going to be pretty horror themed for these next couple of days until we get right into that Christmas season. I figure we might as well start talking about the character of Bloodruth. Now, of course, the Bloodruth number 2 campaign closed out last night, making about $183,000, selling over a little over 5,300 books. So a pretty strong showing. Of course, the first issue launched, made over $800,000 during its collection. But of course, with Bloodruth number 2 being a 56-pager in comparison to 96 pages, and that cheapest cover being 19 for the colored and then 15 for the black and white, those dollar amounts are going to be a little bit less, but still a pretty strong showing from the fans. People do love the character of Bloodruth. I certainly do as well, even though I'm not a horror guy. I've said this before, I'm not really that into horror movies and horror, like really anything, but I do really like this first issue of Bloodruth number 1, and I'm very excited for the second issue, so I figured might as well, while it's still a pretty slow news week, there wasn't any new announcements, and since the Bloodruth number 2 campaign did close out, let's go right into the Blood Witch's story herself. So we're going to start with going over her Dokuman card, and then we're going to go over the first issue, and I'll give my commentary on what I think will be covered in the second issue and what I think we ought to be seeing in the second issue. But without further ado, we're going to get right into Sydney's character. This is, of course, Sydney Bloodruth, 5'9", 132 pounds, born in Victory, Texas. So she is a Texan, and of course she moves to Forest Park. That's basically what a lot of the first issue is really about. And her first appearance was in Item number 2, and then of course she makes a pretty short appearance in Item number 3 as well. And she is the youngest child and only daughter of the mysterious Bloodruth family bloodline. Sydney Bloodruth is an except like no other, known as a blood witch. She uses her blood to cast spells that seem only limited by her occult knowledge. Though much stronger than your average mortal, she's limited by the blood within her body and must take time to recover after strenuous use of her gifts. Sydney fascinates me as she is one of the few who know of and has traveled to different planes of existence like me. She doesn't trust easily, but has gained the respect of 2 shadow wolves and a dragon, which appear to be treasures kept from her otherworldly travels. She recently left her home in favor of an enigmatic magic castle in Forest Park after a family tragedy. I must keep an eye on her, as her unexpected arrival may change everything. And blood magic is limited to the amount of blood in her body. Bloodruth can manipulate her own blood, most often emitting from beneath her nail beds and releasing from her fingertips. The limits and extent of these abilities are still a mystery to me, but I have witnessed her using blood to light up her path, cast spells, and create solid objects. I have also seen her use her powers on the blood of others to learn their secrets. How I long to learn hers. So, of course, there's a lot going on with the character of Bloodruth, and the fact that, she's a blood witch with, like, this mix of, like, like her, like, Christian faith as well. It's very much so Catholic. It's a very interesting thing. It's definitely pretty unique. You haven't really seen this before. There's definitely a lot of, let's say, Christian themes in the Rippaverse, not just with Bloodruth's character, but of course very explicitly with Isom's character. If you read Item number 3, you'll know about that. But to keep this focused on the character of Sydney Bloodruth, we're not going to be talking about that. We're going to talk about the Blood Witch herself. Now, of course, like we said, she is the youngest daughter of the Bloodruth family, and she's the only daughter, so she does have sisters, or not, brothers, excuse me. And we can see in this, let's see if I get it right here, this family portrait right here, you can see Bloodruth with her 2 brothers. I believe there's Abel, if I'm getting his name, I think Abel and Jacob, if I'm not, I'm not sure if I have the names correctly. But I know one of her brothers is named Abel, but forgive me for not being better prepared with all of the names. And then, of course, we know that she's got the 2 shadow wolves. She's got Othello, her dragon. I do know the names of those. And again, fantastic art. from Michael Montanet in this first issue. Now, with this first issue, the biggest thing is that, of course, with this being a #1, this is really establishing the character. So you've got the fact that her, basic backstory is introduced, and the fact that basically all of her family is dead. Her father, as you can see, it's basically become a mute. He's just sitting there, just grieving the loss, blaming, of course, Bloodruth for it. And then you've got the fact that her mother's basically demon-possessed, which is quite interesting. And then, one of the things that I think is really going to be emphasized here in the second issue, of course, I did show this off in the live stream a little bit, but there is going to be more scenes in churches. So there's one of the preview pages, Bloodruth is inside of a church that definitely isn't as dilapidated as this one. Of course, you see very explicit Christian iconography. You've got Mary with a baby Jesus, very common in Christian iconography, especially Catholic iconography. It's a very, very reverent with Mary, as very justified in doing so. And of course, you've got my icon here of Jesus on the stained glass. So this is a very old cathedral looking type of place, and you're going to see more and more of that. And this is going to, of course, very much so skew to being themed around Catholic churches, since the Saskas are Catholic. So that's when they're going on with Christianity, when they're putting Christian themes. That's where the basis of that is. And I do think when it's done right, it actually does look quite nice. And it's going to be pretty interesting to see how this all plays out. And of course, I think one of the things that is going to be really interesting to me, or I think just interesting in general, is just all of the scenes in, let's see, we've got Silk, but yeah, towards the end, if you see, I can get it correctly, you should have Morning Star here. Of course, yes, here you go. Sancta Maria Mater Dei, Ora pro nobis pectoris. I'm butchering the Latin, but she's basically saying, I'd say, the Ave Maria, which is the Hail Mary, which is, Hail Mary, full of grace, pray for us sinners now at the hour of our death. That's the shortened version of it. But calling on the intercession of the Mother Mary is what kills Morning Star. That's absolutely the fantastic thing right there. So, more of that in combination with the Blood Witch powers is the biggest thing I'm really interested in seeing how the Saskas are going to handle. How is, the fact, how are you going to introduce or combine the fact that she's this occult, very pagan witch. That's what it feels like to me, with the blood powers, with the manor being taking place in a swamp and all of those sorts of things. And it feels very much so like she's this kind of occult pagan sort of character, but she does explicitly have Christian themes. But of course, if you see, you got a bunch of crucifixes here and crosses. So again, it seems like the character's ethos idea of oh, she's a blood witch. You think this is a pagan thing, but they clearly are not pagan. So how are you going to combine that theme with the Christian themes? It's going to be a very interesting thing. I'm sure the Saskas are going to do a pretty decent job at doing that, but it just is something that's I wouldn't say off-putting. I guess in a sense it can be, but to me it's more well, it's just something that I haven't really seen anybody do in any piece of media. So I'm going to be very interested in seeing how this plays out in the second issue. And I think, of course, one of the other things that I'm really interested in seeing are Michael and Lillian. We'll see how they continue on, although it seems with how the fallout from this first issue, of course, they wanted, what is now Bloodruth's castle for themselves. And she was able to clear the castle out, clear the demons out of the castle. And as payment, she's took the job under the agreement that she could get anything for payment. And what she takes as payment is, of course, the castle in and of itself. And then Gooding, of course, says that line that I love is you guys haven't gotten my bill yet, which is absolutely hilarious. I gotta love the character of Gooding. So we'll probably see more Gooding, because Gooding is definitely going to want to find out, well, how did she do something that I had no ability to do because my tech didn't work in the castle? And also, I want to learn more about Bloodruth. I want to be able to have her as an ally. And he's, of course, aware of the Bloodruth family. So maybe he's going to go and visit Bloodruth's father at Bloodruth Manor in, I would assume, Victory, Texas, which is where she was born. And of course, it seems like it's decently close to Florist Park. Of course, when you have a magical shadow dragon you can fly, distance doesn't matter all that much, right? But still, I think it's decently close. Regardless, I think More Gooding for sure is a character we're probably going to see make a slight appearance in the second issue, although I know people said that Gooding appearing in this issue kind of detracted from it. That was something I heard when I was when this book, came out earlier this year, almost a year ago. It was February when the book was fulfilled. So it's almost been a full year since we've had Bloodruth #1 in our hands to read and enjoy. And one of the things that people said, wasn't like everybody saying this, but it was like, oh, Gooding being in the book kind of detracted from Bloodruth's story. And I didn't think that at all. I think it was a really cool thing, and it definitely helps make the Rippaverse feel more connected. But certainly the last thing I think want to cover, or I want to emphasize, is, of course, Dokuman. So Dokuman's first in comic book appearance. Of course, we have the Dokuman cards. This is Bloodruth's card, as I just covered. But the first universe, or first comic book appearance of Dokuman is in Bloodruth. And of course, Dokuman is very interested in Bloodruth because they have the same ability to travel through planes of existence. So, are we going to see Dokuman and Bloodruth meet in one of those alternative planes of existence if it happens? I'm not sure if that's going to happen in the second issue, but I'm guaranteeing you it's going to happen in the ongoing series. Maybe we'll get that surprise and it'll happen in that ongoing series, or in the second issue, but in the ongoing series for sure. And then, of course, you've got the character of Michael Crowley, who cannot leave Bloodruth's castle. It does have this ability to revive. And, of course, you've got the fact that she's trying to revive, I believe, one of her brothers back from the dead. So there's a lot of really interesting things. And since it's only 56 pages, I imagine it's going to focus on that main, trying to bring her family back from the dead. And it's going to be less focusing on more fantastical ethereal experiences, which is something that would be involved with Dokuman. So if you're going to try and fail a lot in those 56 pages, I think that's going to be something that gets cut off and saved for possibly the third, fourth, maybe even fifth or sixth issue, depending on how the Saskas have things planned out, because they've said we've got 100 issues of Yaira planned out. I'm sure they've got just as many issues of Bloodruth planned out. They know where they want to take this character. And it's probably not going to be for a while until we see a showdown. I wouldn't say there would be a showdown, but definitely an interaction between Dokuman and Bloodruth. Would I love for it to happen in the second issue? Yes, but I think at this point there's more to Bloodruth's story that still needs to get up and going before you take it to that level. But it definitely is something to think about, and it definitely is something to consider. But I think regardless, I'm going to leave it there. That's all the speculation I have for you guys today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode of the Braxcast. Joker is out.
Thank you for tuning in to the Braxcast. Be sure to like, comment, follow, and subscribe to keep up with the Rippaverse.